However, our focus tonight, state of the nation, the current economic realities under the Tinubu-led administration in lieu of Nigeria's revenue generation. Welcome, I am Delta and Borno. Let's get the answers. The International Monetary Fund, also known as IMF, has revised Nigeria's 2025 economic growth forecast upwards to 3.4%, marking a 0.4% point increase from its April 2025 projection. The Central Bank of Nigeria also projects a growth rate of 4.17%, while the World Bank forecasts a 3.6% growth. Now, despite the growth forecast, the country's economy faces challenges. For instance, unemployment remains high, hovering around 22% the first quarter of 2025. There's also the rise in cost of living and public debt profile. The administration's economic reform, including the removal of fuel subsidies and the floating of the Naira, have been met with criticism for exacerbating economic hardship. Now, to discuss this, I'm joined by Professor Anthony Kila, who's a professor of strategy and development. I also have Abduljabbar Rufai as an aspirant for the national youth leader of the PDP. But before I get to my guest, let's dive in with two of our reporters who are on standby. Joining us are Austin Azu from Delta and also Umaru Kirawa. But let's take Austin first. Austin, it's great to have you. Of course, we know that you took a deep dive to feel the pulse of Nigerians as regards what they are currently facing. Let's take a look at that package and the reaction of Nigerians as regards the cost of living.
Well, I don't believe in the government. I rely on myself. In fact, I don't like his government. I must tell you the truth. I'm not afraid of the Nigerian government. If you watch well, INEC is rigging an election because Tinubu is not winning this election. INEC gave it to him because he has money more than the person that won it. I don't like government. For that, I must never vote again until I die.
In column me too hard though. Tinubu no dey try you. No dey try at all. We get governments at all. I don't know. Me, I don't hustle for my life. I don't know about Tinubu. You can see me now, I'm hustling. Can see him, see him. See him. No be better I use to do this thing. I they do and make I survive. Make Tinubu do Nigeria well. Make it carry rice down, carry food down.
I don't think for now there's any policy that I'm not comfortable with, except for the hike in fuel, which determines a Nigerian's living standard. The policy of whatever you produce and put to the table determines what you get. It's a good one, economic reform. I'm at home with it.
We not see money to eat now, even though if you say 1 cup of bottled water, what do you go use to buy rice? Nothing. We're not that happy.
Tinubu not the doer. At least may he open border first. May goods they enter Nigeria. Everything they cost. See ordinary bottled water, we say you want to give person, you go to tell the person 300. It's very cost for that 300. See here, 300 naira. It's very cost. Even if civil person will not get money now, no if you buy pure water again. Pure water 150 naira. It's no good now.
That's the pulse of Nigerians there as regards the cost of living there from Delta State. Austin Azu put that together. Austin, it's great to have you.
Good evening, Dakpo. How are you doing?
Very well. Just quickly, you went into the streets of Delta State to actually hear from Nigerians as regards the daily cost of living, and we saw that happen. But I would like you to speak briefly on what you encountered. What are Nigerians saying?
Of course, you quite agree with me that the economic hardship that is blowing through Nigeria is actually touching on every citizen that live in Nigeria, and residents of Delta State are not exempted from what is happening across the country. We spoke to a cross-section of them, and they expressed diverse opinions regarding the economic policy of Mr. President. One in question they actually talked about is the high cost of living, and most of them are saying right now that the living cannot even afford to survive, because if they go to the market, what they the cash or the power purchase they took to the market cannot in any way even guarantee even once sloughin from the market. It becomes quite difficult for most of them to begin to have their daily meals. And obviously, you quite agree with me that the poverty level across board has increased. Now, one of them actually spoke extensively on the cost of rents in Delta State, in Asaba particularly. Of course, we quite agree with me that most of the house rents across Nigeria has skyrocketed, obviously due to the fact that the landlords and other landowners have increased their own commodity. And all this boils down to what most of them said. There was a consensus about all what they said, that the fear is the architect of the high cost of living in Nigeria. And most of them question the rationale behind the fare subsidy removal, and most of them are still asking questions. What has the federal government used the fare subsidy for in terms of development, in terms of improving the living standard of Nigerians? And apart from that, others equally talked about that even our roads are in debt traps, and that they want the federal government to fix the roads. And because of the deployable states of federal roads across Nigeria, for them to bring their goods and produce from their farmland becomes so difficult for them to move. Outside that, they equally talked about insecurity, that the farmers can no longer go to their farms, and they are, being kidnapped at their farms, and issues regarding suspected herdsmen taking over their farmlands, that there is need for urgent attention. Policymakers, the federal government, and every other stakeholders in Nigeria should come together and provide a solution to this monster that is ravaging our economy.
All right,
Austin.
Austin.
If the economy is doing well.
All right, Austin. Thank you so much. If you can hear me, thank you so much. I know that I mean there's quite a lot to say, and we saw what you put together, the package. Really telling us exactly what Nigerians, particularly in Delta State, think of the cost of living. Thank you so much, Austin, for that. Let me bring in my guests for tonight. Professor Anthony Kila is a professor of strategy and development. I also have Abduljabbar Rufai, is an aspirant for the national youth leader of the People's Democratic Party. Gentlemen, I'd like to say a big thank you for joining me on the program. Thank you for your time. Let me start with you, Professor Kila. The International Monetary Fund projects, a global growth rate of about 3.1% in 2025, maintaining, a similar pace to that of 2024. And we've seen projections or positive, projections as regards Nigeria. There are, of course, an upward forecast of about 3.4%, a markup of about 0.4, percent point increase from what we've known. But this does not seem to translate to the pockets of the average Nigerian, just like what we saw, from that feedback we got, from the streets of Delta State. Is this administration actually getting it right, or are we just seeing numbers being cooked up here?
I think the numbers are cooked up. I mean, politicians will say that, but I don't say that. I think what is wrong is that we have a jaundiced kind of growth. The growth we're having do not stem from government policies, and they were not built around the people. That is why you're having problems. If you look at the areas that are growing, that are declaring profit, you look at the banking industry that are declaring big profit, you would look at perhaps the real estate that are building more. But, and that is what we call Main Street versus Broad Street. In Nigeria, in America, it will be Main Street versus Wall Street. What is going on is that the people are not happy because what matters to them is the cost of the food they buy. That has not gone down. What matters to them is the cost of transportation. That has not gone down. What matters to them is that what they earn cannot buy what they need. So to that extent, you have you have a jaundiced position. What you will need, if you want to talk about that later on, is to have policies and programs that are targeted to ensuring that goods and services are available and affordable. And that is what is missing at the moment.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Professor Kila, for that, of course, analysis. Let me bring Abduljabbar Rufai in. Abdul, you're a young Nigerian. I mean, for many young Nigerians, particularly those that maybe, are just leaving out from school and starting life, it's pretty much difficult. We know what rent is at the moment, for an average person in the city, from feeding costs to getting your first job, your salary, how you're able to manage it, what an average graduate earns, annually compared to the cost of living. I mean, for a young Nigerian like yourself, how would you look at what we are seeing right now and the approach of the Tinubu-led administration in tackling it? Is it promising?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I must begin by, commending your TV station for being as objective to the issues as they are. I don't believe you are part of, even though I've never been on your TV station, but I don't believe you are part of those TV stations that are biased or, prejudiced in the political system. Talking about the today's policy discourse, you see the taxation and tariff are obviously the primary tools being used, especially by this government, to see how they can, generate revenue for the budget of the country, which is, I think, it keeps on, pressurizing the masses. I believe there are a lot of other ways that the government can diversify the economy without necessarily pressurizing the masses or to a large extent those same people who voted for them. The beginning of this administration, from the beginning, maybe the very first hour of the Tinubu-led administration, Nigerians have and are still facing, economic hardship. Talking about the exchange rate, the foreign exchange rate, you talk about the petroleum pump price, you talk about a lot of, figures, the inflation and all. I heard you mention earlier about the International Monetary Fund projection. When are we going to, get enough of this political gymnastics? Because that is obviously what they are. We see the reality, we face the reality, and every Nigerian knows what he or she faces in the current, situation we are in. So I don't see any reason why anyone should come and tell us that, this government is doing anything positive as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Rufai, thank you so much for your insights. At this point, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll dig deeper into this conversation and more. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on News Central Television. And today we are looking at the cost of living and how, of course, Nigerians are coping, and also the revenue strategy the current administration is putting together to ramp up the nation's revenue. But before we get back with our guest, let's link up with News Central's correspondent, Umaru, Kirawa, who, of course, is in Borno State, to tell us exactly what the people, the residents of Borno, are feeling and how they're coping with the current economic realities. Umaru, it's great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to have you too.
All right, so let's feel the pulse of what residents in Borno are saying as regards the living cost and the current economic realities.
I mean, residents are saying so many things, from public transportation system to schools and so on and so forth. People say a lot about the economic realities in the country, but to further give more life to what I am saying, I have one of the residents here with me, Sunday Williams, who will tell us more about the situation with him. So Sunday, what is it like for you, the economic reality in Nigeria today?
Well, the economic realities in Nigeria today is something that everybody is affected, especially the policies that the present administration has put on the ground. As a resident, you know, the way prices of commodities rise every now and then, it's really affecting the common man. I am an entrepreneur, and the little things we buy to run our business, like, for example, talk about beans and oil that we use to run our business. Something that we used to buy for, let me give you an example, something that we used to buy for just 15,000. Within a short period of time, it's now about 80,000 naira. So you can imagine how this is affecting a small business like ours. You know, transportation also has rise beyond what you can think. A place where you go, you pay just 100 naira, now you pay 250 naira. So you have to now cut down some of the things that are necessary, but you cannot afford to cut it down. You know, some families have cut down their feeding. Families cannot feed 3 square meals as usual again because of the cost. You know, you can food stuff that can take you and your family to a week now cannot take you more than 3 days. So the effect is really harsh on us, especially residents.
Okay, besides this, can you tell us more, particularly with regard to the issue of palliative? It's learned that the government has issued palliative immediately after the fuel subsidy that was removed. That is what the government said. Is there any impact of that palliative that the government has done? And we've learned that recently some rights were given to residents at cheaper rates. What is it like?
Well, that I would say, I will give a thumbs up to government. Yes, we've seen palliative going round. But let me make it clear that it cannot go around everybody. You know, there are so many people are still complaining that they do not receive palliative. But the fact remains that yes, we saw palliative being distributed here in the communities. We see palliative being distributed. But the truth is, it cannot go around everybody. And I think that should not be the solution. It is not about give me fish, but allow me to fish for myself. Make policies that will be friendly. Make policies that will be friendly so that we can go and fish on our own, not giving us fish.
All right, thank you so much, Sunday Williams. And in addition to this, I also have a professor of international relations and strategic studies, Professor Ibrahim Umaru, who will also tell us his own experience and, of course, from the expert point of view. So, Professor.
Okay, Umaru, if you can hear me, just if you can hear me.
Yeah.
All right, please, you may go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I to respond to your own or to?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Can you recap?
Yes, what is your own experience with regard to the economic realities on ground in Nigeria?
It all has to do with the ability of the government to see how to put this and fix the economy of a nation state. This man came with a promise, and that promise is based on signaling. And you know, the Nigerian economy is at a very situation, considering the linking and construction of the Nigerian oil flow to the national economy. The subsidy regime has drained a huge of the Nigerian capacity to reserve and then to redistribute something. Unless and until the fuel subsidy is withdrawn, I think the rest of the not generate sufficient revenue in other impacts and other things. So this is one of the aspects in which the government decided to reform the economy, first by the growth.
All right, Umaru, if you can hear me well, we are having a bit of difficulty trying to hear the professor, but at least we have a filler of what Nigerians, might be going through when it comes to this policies, by the current administration and the projections we are seeing as against reality. Let me bring back my guest in the studio, Professor Anthony Kila, as a professor of strategy and development, and also Abduljabbar Rufai, an aspirant, a national youth leader of the PDP. Gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you for staying with me. Let me come back to you, Professor Kila. I mean, you said quite a couple of things, during your opening remarks, but let's look at the revenue target of this current administration for 2025, as outlined in the budget, about 34.82 trillion naira, to fund, projected, aggregate expenditure of about 47.90 trillion naira. Now, this, of course, represents a significant increase from what we saw in 2024. But looking at this revenue target, vis-a-vis the current realities that we are seeing on the streets, just like what we've seen from our reporters here, would you say that the administration has its priorities properly, spelled out?
No, what I think, my position is well known. I totally disagree with the way the administration is going about raising revenue, and I want to be very clear and on record for that. But let me preamble what we're saying. There is a very simple but very fundamental equation to solve. And this is the equation. On one side, people need roads, hospitals, they need education, they need security, and they need, a lot of services that the government must provide. On the other side, the government needs money or other sorts of revenue to provide these services. The question is, how do we go about providing these services? It appears that the Nigerian government is stuck to a model, and that model is tax, tariff, levies, and borrowing. Now, I disagree with that model. I think it is not good enough, and it is not sustainable, and it is not people-friendly. My proposal is that the public economic managers of the country have to think differently. Rather than trying to tax people, rather than trying to levy people, rather than trying to borrow money, which they might still do in a bit, but I think they need to think more of how to generate revenue outside this classical form. They need to think of, for example, selling off some of our assets, leasing off some of the assets. They need to find a way to generate revenue.
I'm going to come in here, Professor. You said part of the strategies as outside what they already have is they need to think about, you gave examples, selling or leasing some of our assets. Can you be more specific? What assets can maybe the government, for instance, put out for sale or for lease?
Okay, so let me give you two very simple examples. Because I travel across the country, I know that the government has a lot of buildings that are underused or not used at all, and they have them in very expensive areas. For starters, if I were president of this country or minister of economy, I will move our government buildings from the expensive locations to cheaper locations and use that money to generate funds. I would, for example, sell off some of the assets to generate funds, and that will bring immediate cash. I would, for example, propose that we quote the NNPC on Wall Street in New York, in the city of London, so that we can generate forex for it. That is by leasing and selling and using what we have to make money. But let us also go to the other side of the equation. If we want to build roads, I would say, for example, instead of the government trying to raise money to build roads, I would tell the government to advertise the roads they want to build, let private people come and build it, and let them make money from charging tolls or something else. So it will be a long-term investment that will not take off money from people today. That's the kind of thinking that the government needs to put in place. Look, the way to look at it is this. If you have a family, and every time you need money, the only thing you think about is asking money from the father or the mother or the husband or the wife, you're not going to go far. But if you sit down and say, okay, let us think of how to make more money,
all right,
it will help more. The advantage of making more money, the advantage of leasing, selling things, the advantage of partnership with people to build is that you will also create jobs whilst doing that. So instead of looking at building road just as an expenditure, I look at it as fixing the problem, and at the same time, creating job and generating wealth.
All right. Let me leave you for a moment, Professor Kila. Let me, of course, go to Rufai. Rufai, part of the, what I call it, policies or the initiative that this current administration they put in place is the student loans. I would like you to speak on that, but I understand that we have our correspondent back, that's Umaru, Kirawa in Borno State. So I'll come back to you right now, but let's go to Umaru back. Umaru, I think we have you back. Let's get your final thoughts on what the people in the residents in Borno State are saying as regards the cost of living and also revenue generation.
Yes, like one of the speakers has rightly said, people are going through very difficult times. But like we've introduced Professor Ibrahim Umaru earlier, he will tell us more with regard to the experience. So, Prof.
Even Mr. President had already called on Nigerians to remain patient as there are very many alternatives that the government is looking at venturing in other stages of the economic situation. But at the same time, you can appreciate that the economic policies the government has used is a purely neoliberal economy, which is much more detached from the realities on the ground. When the policies of the withdrawal of subsidy, allowing the Naira to float in the market, the bank recapitalization, withdrawal of subsidies from the electricity by increasing the tariff kilowatt per consumer, inconsistent charges on the import duty, as well as the policies of tax reform. All these are policies that are necessary that will streamline to really put Nigeria on the actual right track for development. But it has to engage in terms of understanding by engaging an advocate to make Nigerians be aware of the situation, for them to at least cooperate for the policy to proceed for us to be in the right track. But if these policies are not pursued, I think we don't have any alternative. The disposals of assets that we are talking about cannot take us anywhere. Let us look at the international scenario. We are always dependent on the single source of income, that is the exportation of crude oil, which is very volatile in the international market. It is susceptible to changes on the volatile international market. That is one aspect of it. And then two, when you are talking about the market recapitalization, particularly on the banking sector, you need to have a substantial rate of investment for the bankers to pick up, particularly for the merchant bank effect is around 500 billion. That will give security to people.
Umaru.
And then commercial bank effect is around 200,000 naira. 200 billion naira. So these are policies that are purely neoliberal. In the short run, it will definitely hurt the life of the average Nigerian, but in the long run, I think it is going to reorganize the Nigerian economy and we are going to be on the right track. But remember to take into cognizance the outlook in the international economy, where we are largely dependent on. And consider again the national security threats that we are in, fighting insurgency, banditry, kidnapping and abduction. All these require a sort of concerted effort in order to generate.
All right, thank you so much, Umaru Kirawa, for the insights on that one. Really, really revealing. Thank you so much. Well, let's bring the conversation back to the studio right now. I was about to come to you, Rufai, to ask you what you think about a part of the policies or initiatives being put in place is the student loan. You are a young Nigerian yourself. I mean, what do you make of this idea? And in tandem with what we know as regards the, will I call it the scope or the amount of out-of-school children in the country?
Member of the opposition People's Democratic Party, I must give it to the APC administration for this wonderful initiative of the NEL Fund student loan. It's a good initiative, but however, I still believe, and I'm still of the belief that the number of out-of-school children is a more serious issue that needs to be tackled. Not to talk of I believe that the expenditures and the resources being used at the NEL fund should be directed more on the out-of-school children, because I think primary school and secondary school, which are the foundation of every child, should be the primary concern of the government. Not to talk of maybe tertiary institutions. Yes, tertiary institutions are paramount, but not as paramount as the foundation, which is the primary and secondary education. So I still believe that the governments need to be more focused on seeing how they can curb the number of millions of out-of-school children. If not, we are going to be in a very doomed generation. I don't know, I can't really even start to imagine the kind of situation Nigeria is going to be. Let's say for the next 20 years, you don't know, all those children that are out of school children will be the ones on the streets. They will be the adults, they will be the fathers and the mothers. So what do you expect? What kind of generation are you expecting to, see in the society? So it's a very disheartening stuff that I believe the government need to be more focused on than the NEL fund. NEL fund is a very good initiative as well, even though I haven't been a beneficiary of it, but I know quite a number of people that are beneficiaries of it. So kudos to the APC, but there's still a long way to go.
All right, let me come back to Professor Kila. Now, Professor Kila, let's talk about the loan profile or debt profile of the nation. Under this current administration, we've seen a significant growth reaching about 149.39 trillion naira. That's about $97.24 billion as of March 31st, 2025. Now, this represents about a 22.8% year-on-year increase, from, what we had in the first quarter of 2024. We would go on a quick break. Just, hold your thoughts on that. When we return, we'll be taking your response. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on News Central Television. I still have my guest with me, Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development, and also Abduljabbar Rufai, an aspirant. That's National Youth Leader of the PDP. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Now, before we went on that break, Professor Kila, I was asking, your opinion as regards Nigeria's recent debt profile. There are concerns that this might be unsustainable, even though the reasons the government has given for picking some of these loans has to do in the area of infrastructure and some targeted projects. But what do you make of what we are seeing now in terms of the numbers?
I think that in terms of nominal, numbers, figures, it must be said that this is the highest debt level the country has ever seen. So you can understand why people are concerned. That is a reason that will strike people. There's a sort of a moral mindset about debts, generally speaking. In our culture, but generally humanity, we do not see debt well in terms of common sense. William Shakespeare one wrote that you should neither be a borrower nor a lender. But I am not of that opinion. I have argued that Shakespeare was neither an economist nor a finance expert. So he's not really somebody to give us advice on public finance. The domestic mindset, the commonsensical household management style that people bring does not work to public finance. I am not afraid of debt. The other problem I have with the Nigerian debt structure is three. Number one is that the people cannot feel, at least as of today, maybe tomorrow, as of today, they cannot feel the benefit of the debt that we have taken. You cannot show to say, thanks to the debt we took, this is why we have this project, or this is why we have these jobs, or this is why we have better security. That is a problem. The other problem is that loan, by definition, is something you take to build something that will generate the capital and enough money for interest and some money to keep for yourself. That is the essence of a capital loan. You know, you don't borrow money to eat. You borrow money to build, to buy and to sell. So when we take loans, it would be good if the government can explain that these 10 naira, 10 million, 10 billion that we're taking, we're going to use it to do something that will generate 15, out of which we use 10 to pay back the amount, 2 to pay the naira, and 3 as profit. That is a very crucial thing to do. The third problem we have is the sustainability and the serviceability of the loan. If you're taking loan and most of your revenue is to pay back loan, then the future is not great. I think we need to reassess that. My thinking, to summarize, is that I am not allergic to loans, but I want loans to be focused, and I want to take only loans that will be able to pay back for itself.
But is that, sorry, Professor, but looking at what we're seeing right now, is that what is being reflected? You've given those indices, but is that what we're seeing at the moment?
No, I do not think so. I think the problem we have is that we're not seeing the benefit of the loan. That's the problem we have. The benefits of the loan should be that people should point to projects and services that is improving their life thanks to the loan. The benefit of the loan is that people should be seeing jobs and wealth creation thanks to the loan. That's the problem we have, and that's what we need to address. I also think that the way we're serving it is too much. So the short answer to your question is no. That is not what we're seeing at the moment.
All right, I'm still with you, Professor Kila. Now, some, what I call it, experts are sort of advocating, given the peculiarity of the cost of living right now, that it might sort of require an unusual approach. Some are suggesting price control, particularly when it comes to basic essential items like food, accommodation, transportation, which we have seen. Even though we've seen interventions in some of these areas, but some are saying that at this point, for instance, with food, there should be some level of price control. The current administration has said it doesn't believe in it, that it should allow the forces of demand and supply play out and let market forces, determine the price. But to a very large extent, the cost of living is still high. So at this point, do you think that some level of price control is important, particularly on essential items?
No, I disagree. I totally disagree with any form of price control. Price control is terrible. It's a bad idea. It has never worked anywhere. What we need to do, the reason the price is determined by demand and supply. What we need to do is to increase supply. What we need to do is to diversify demand. That way, that will bring price lower. I'm sure you're aching for an example. Let me give you an example in transportation. What we need to do, for example, is to make sure that there are more public transport systems that are comfortable enough. Let me use my Lagos for an example. A lawyer, a doctor that lives in Ikeja, or perhaps somewhere further than Ikeja that works on an island, should be able to wear his or her suit and get to the office on a public transport system safely and neatly, with the files neat from Ikeja to the island to the High Court, without using their car. If they do that, they will save on transportation, more people will be on the public transport, and the cost of petrol will go down because the demand will go down. So we need to invest in public transportation. The other thing that we need to do is to work very seriously to increase the supply of goods and services. The government and the people should work together to decide to say, we want to crash the price of food, not control it. The way to crash the price of food is to ensure farmers can go to the farm, to make sure logistics managers can store food items and transport them to the market where it's needed. If you need a ton of tomatoes and you're able to make 2 tons or even more of that, the prices will go down. We need to learn not to fight over the slice of cake or bread that we have, but to move a bigger oven. Instead of arguing about the small thing we have, we need to learn to make more of it.
Professor Kila, I'm still going to stay with you on this issue, but I would, of course, get an answer from you when we return from this final break. And that is the issue of the hike in rent accommodation. I mean, what's the best approach? You said you don't believe in price control, but Nigerians right now are paying over 100%, many of them, of what they were paying a year or 2 years ago as rent. So what would you suggest as a practical solution? I'll take your final thoughts on that when we return. Stay with us. All right, many thanks for staying with us. Of course, these are the final moments of today's episode. But before I go, just in 30 seconds, Professor Kila, what do you think can be done to address the hike in rent across the nation? 30 seconds, sir. If not price control.
You need to build more. You need to build more houses. You need to create a mortgage system. You need to find a way in which people can rent and pay the house rent monthly, not annually. It's all about the supply side.
Supply side. Thank you so much. I would also like to ask Rufai, your final thoughts. 30 seconds.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Your final thoughts. What do you think can be done to better improve the lives of Nigeria? Or which policy would you recommend that the current administration reverses? 30 seconds.
Political reforms. Political reforms. The APC-led administration have been focused on, economic reforms and policies that are not really the real issue of Nigeria. The real issues of Nigeria are mostly political transformations and not just economic. So without political reforms, I don't see, and I don't believe economic reforms are going to work. I mean, I'll give you an example briefly. The PDP administration under former President Obasanjo, brought about all the major anti-graft agencies, which is the ICPC and the EFCC. All those are, fundamental institutions for the macroeconomics of the country. So I believe, political reforms go to a large extent in economic transformation.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the show. It's been a privilege having you. Professor Anthony Kila is a professor of strategy and development, and also Abduljabbar Rufai, aspirant, that's National Youth Leader of the PDP. Once again, gentlemen, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. This is where we drop the, of course, curtains on today's episode. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's at News Central TV. You can also choose to follow us across social media. The handle is there on your screen. You can choose to follow me personally at Dakbo Adigboye. Until I come your way again tomorrow, good night.